Hi, welcome. And for those of you who doesn't know me, my name is Elin and this is my channel Hidden in a Book, and I talk about books. Surprise, surprise. Who would have guessed by the name? So I know this is super late and I'm probably the last one to do this. By the way, here's my Moomin mug and my coffee. Of course, I'm a coffee addict, I guess. An addict? Not really. Anyway, enough about that. I'm going to talk about my favorites, and I'm probably the last one to talk about my 2019 favorites. I am not doing the books in any particular order, because I can't rate them. It's just impossible for me. I also decided that I would only do fiction. So all of them are fiction books. I will not be doing a non-fiction favorite. And these are only just some of my favorites. There's like 10 of my favorites from 2019. I also decided that I would not do any rereads, because I did a reread of Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen, which is one of my favorite books, and I decided not to include that, among other things. And I have to say that 2019 was a really, really good reading year for me. I had so many good reads. It was wonderful to read books that I enjoyed so much. I also have to say that I very often don't finish books that I don't like. If I find out that, okay, I have read 50 pages by now and this book is not a book that I care for, so I put it aside and I DNF it. And that's it. And I kind of almost forget that I tried to read it and it's not on any list or anything. Maybe I should do that, like make a DNF list on Goodreads. Have any of you done that? Do you do it? Do you find it helpful? I don't know. I kind of tend to remember the books that I've read and not liked, so I don't know. Anyway, let's get to it. As I said, no particular order of these favorites. So I'm just starting with a book, the nearest one, I guess, and I'll have to go through all 10 books that I have picked. So I'm actually going to start with this, The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Kowal. Maybe you know this already, but this book also won the Hugo Awards this year, or last year, not this year, last year. And it's a book that is kind of alternative history, science fiction-ish. So it's about the Earth. It's in the 1950s, and there has been a meteor. So the Earth has the meteor kind of created this really huge quick climate change. And they're trying to find somewhere else to live. And the main character is a woman. And all she really wants is to become an astronaut. And it being the world, because there's like the 50s in the books have a lot of common with the real 50s. And there's a lot of like sexism and stuff. So I would think that this book is actually quite a feminist read as well. So if you're looking for like a feminist read, I could recommend this. I really, really, really love this book. I nominated it for the Hugos, I think. Did I nominate it? I can't remember whether I actually nominated it or I just voted for it, because I definitely voted for it because it was a really, really good read, and it was my favorite among the finalist for the best novels of the Hugo Awards last year. So that was one book. And I'm going to do a Norwegian book here. Aldri, aldri, aldri by Linn Strømsbø. Borg. Yes, Lindströmsborg. Aldrig, aldrig, aldrig. Really, really good read for me. I could relate to this a lot. It's about a young woman. She's 35, so she's 10 years younger than I am, but she doesn't want kids. She doesn't really go into a lot of detail about why she doesn't want kids, but she tries to kind of go into the reasoning that people have to get kids, which is interesting enough. And I was talking to someone who said, but she doesn't really give good reasons for not having kids. And then I kind of go, but why would you need good reasons not to have kids? Doesn't make any sense to me, because why would you justify a choice that doesn't really affect anyone else? If you choose to have a child, that affects a whole life, not only your life, but this other person that you're bringing into life. So in my opinion, you should have more thought and care behind having kids than not having them. That's my personal opinion. I'm not against having kids at all, but it's not for me, and I'm really happy to have this book that I could relate to, because there's not a whole lot about this kind of theme in popular culture, to be honest. There's some, but not a whole lot. There's more about having kids and the mother, role of the mother, relationship between mother and child, things like that. So yeah, so this also was a really, really good book. Next book I'm going to mention is Brothers Ruin by one of my favorite author, Emma Newman. This was not published last year, and I don't know why I haven't gotten around to reading it before now, because it was really, really cool. It's kind of like a little bit cyberpunk-ish. It's set in the Industrial Revolution, right after it. I think it's 1850s. And the industrial revolution has happened. However, it didn't happen as we know it. It was brought on by magic. And in this world, if you have magic, you should use your magic to serve the Queen of England, because it's set in England. And the main character in this book has magical powers, but she's hiding it. She wants to be an illustrator, which is also difficult because she's a woman and she has to be she's in a man's world. She's kind of trying to help her brother because her father has kind of said that he has magical powers, but it's actually really her. Her brother doesn't really have a lot of magical powers, so she's kind of hiding and trying to make the best of it. So that was a really, really interesting concept, I think. It was quite an easy read. It's kind of a thing. I think you would call this a novella. For me, it's just a book. In Norwegian, we don't have a proper word for novella. I think you could say kortroman, like a short novel. It's a book. Anyway, this is the first in the series, and I have the second one to read, but I'm not quite sure when I'll get around to it. It's Weaver's Lament. So it's on my shelf, and I am looking forward to reading it. I just don't know when I will have the time. And since I'm talking about one of my favorite authors, Emma Newman, I am going to show you the next favorite from last year, which is Atlas Alone, which is the last book in the Planetful series. It's been a while since I read the first one, because it came out when? Oh, I can't remember. Oh, I have it on my shelf here. No, can't remember. I'm not going to look closely at it because it takes too much time. Anyway, so this is the newest one in the series. You can read all the books in this Planetful series as standalones, but I would recommend reading them in the order that they came out, because that's what I think you'll get more out of it in that way. So in Atlas Alone, you kind of meet one of the characters from Planetfall. So you have, I would actually highly not recommend to read After Atlas before reading this. Yeah, I would actually advise you to read. If you don't read the others, at least read After Atlas. It's also a really good book. It's kind of a crime, sort of science fiction book. This is definitely science fiction, and it's so good. And I'm not going to say too much about it, but the ending, oh my god. Emma Newman, if you're watching this, my mind exploded. It was so good. Highly recommend this book. Next book that I'm going to talk about is this book, Ungen by Aina Basso. It's a Norwegian book again, and it's set in Oslo, it was called Christiania at the time, and autumn 1899. The main character, Anna, she loses her job, sort of, and she kind of have to live with a friend, and they start taking in kids, and that's kind of where it starts. They kind of care more about the money than the kids, and the kids kind of start dying. And these are actually based on real events in Oslo, here in Norway. So it's I think for me it was very interesting, and I really enjoyed it. Oh, did I find it horrible like the events and stuff? Of course I did. However, I think if you have kids, it'll touch you even more, because it's even closer to you, if you understand what I mean. That being said, I'm not a cold-hearted person, so of course I was touched by it. It was, but it was such a good read, and I was really fortunate. I went to the launch of the book, and I got it signed, so that was kind of cool as well. Oh, I have my Emma Newman book signed as well. I think so yeah. So that's kind of cool. I like having books signed. So the next book, who has also become one of my favorite reads, or favorite books, is Orlando by Virginia Woolf. And I can't for the very life of me understand why haven't I read this book before. It makes no sense to me. Honestly, I read Mrs. Dalloway ages ago. When was it? I read it in over 20 years ago. And since then I've read To the Lighthouse, I think. Yeah, To the Lighthouse, and I really enjoy that as well. So I know that I loved Virginia Woolf, and this as well. Goodness gracious me, it's about gender. There's like strong characters. It's a feminist book in many ways, and the language is so poetic and so beautiful, and I love this edition of it. I got it secondhand at a bookshop in Munich called the Munich Readery, which is a big secondhand bookshop in Munich with English books. So I think it's like either books in English or about England, I think. But anyway, really good read. I really want to read this at some point. I don't know when, but at some point. So next book I'm going to talk about is this one with a very long title. Ikke fordi den har et svar, men fordi den har en sang by Tor Åge Bringsværd. He is one of my favorite Norwegian authors. He's brilliant in my opinion. He writes a lot of different kinds of books. He's written children's books, pictures books. He's written a book on London that I really love. It's one of the few travel books. It's kind of a travel book that I've read like from like back to back, from beginning to end, like the whole way through, more than once. It's not very a thing I normally do, but his books are so good. I need some more coffee. I keep forgetting about my coffee. Yeah. All about these books, you know. Anyway, so this is a really, really good book, and it's about a world where you have humans and you have another race, another species, but they're kind of closer to other animals, other non-human animals, and they have a tail, among other things. And it's about the relationship between that species and the humans, and about how the humans kind of rule this world, and then there's a revolution sort of thing. And you can read it in so many ways. You can read it as a comment on apartheid, about how we treat animals. Yeah, lots of things. It's just a really good read in general, and I really enjoyed the theme of it as well. And it's not like a new theme for him as well either, because he writes about like these relationships between us humans and how we treat the world around us a lot. And the next book I want to mention is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman, which I read very early last year, so it's like almost a year since I've read it. And it's about a young woman and how she struggles in social settings. After reading it, you kind of understand why she has problems fitting in. She's a bit different. But then there's this guy who kind of is in her work, and they become friends, and then they're in the street and one day, and they save an elderly man, and they become his friend, which is really nice as well, and how it kind of changes her life in a way. So yeah, so I'm not going to say a whole lot about this book. There's probably a lot of others on YouTube that has analyzed this throughoutly. I would guess. It was one of the big talks and last year and the year before, I guess. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I can recommend it as well. As I've said, these books are among my favorites from last year, so they are worth mentioning. And then another book is Kinderhår by Maria Kjos Fønn. Another Norwegian book that came out. Did it come out last year? I'm going to have a look here. No, it came out in 2018, but I read it last year. Pretty early in the year, I think. Yeah. So this book. What can I say about this book? It's about a dysfunctional mom. She's using tablets to kind of escape her life, so she's like addicted to pills, and she has this kid. So Charlotte doesn't really know another life other than this mom that takes drugs and kind of escapes. And we don't really get to know a lot about the mom, but she kind of realizes that her life is kind of tough quite early, and she has to take care of her mom. And there are men coming into the family, like the mother takes like new relationships over again, and it's like new dads coming in. And there was one man that was really nice, and she was like, she could see lasted for about a year, and she could see how life could have been. But of course it doesn't last, and then there's another man coming in, and so this is a trigger warning for this book. There's a abuse. He abuses her, and she feels a lot of guilt and shame, and she starts using drugs to escape from her pain, because that's basically what she knows. So yeah, this was not an easy read at all, but it was very good. So if you know Norwegian, I don't know if this is translated to any other languages. I don't know, but if it is translated to your language, read it. Do you know Norwegian? Read it. Yeah. So the last book I'm going to mention is this beauty here. The Testaments. It's so pretty, by Margaret Atwood. I have a whole video on this one. So I did a book review on this. So if you're interested, I'll link in the thing below there, you know, description box. So yeah, so I'm not going to talk about this book here, because you can go and have a look at the video. Smart, huh? Anyway, so that was also about one of my favorite books. So that was my, what I see as my 10 favorites. 10 favorites. As you can see, I don't like edit my videos because it's too much work and I don't have all that much time on my hands. Well, sometimes I do if I do have the time, but normally I don't edit my videos because I don't really have the time. And yeah. And so others might say I have bloopers, but that is okay. It's real. It's not fake. It's all me. This is what you get. Kind of thing. So yeah. Anyway, so that was my top 10 books of 2019. In no particular order, I really enjoyed all these books. So that's it for now. I'm not sure when I'll be able to make another video, and I don't really know what I'm going to talk about in that video. Maybe I should probably do a video quite shortly, but who knows. I'll see what I get the time to get. So until next time, bye.